everyone. Welcome to this week's Coach's Corner. For those of you who are new to the group, we want to say a great big welcome. My name is Penny Hounsome. I'm a health, lifestyle, and mindset coach. And this week, I wanted to talk about a pretty good topic, I find, anyway. So, and I know a lot of people that kind of like get to this point where they think all these things are normal, but we're going to talk about 3 things that you think are normal, but they're actually signs of trauma. Now, I actually have a list of 10 and I will share those with you, but I want to talk about the top 3 when we get going. So one of the biggest things that we find with everybody, and they all say the same thing, is like, oh, I don't have any trauma. But in reality is people misinterpret what trauma is or is not, or they feel that they've not had a catastrophic event. So, well, of course, there's no trauma. But I've talked about this before, and there is like a small T trauma, big T traumas, and they tend to add up over the time of life. So you have a great big T trauma. So this is a catastrophic event that has happened that has changed your life. So hence the catastrophic. It is a life-changing event. It tends to be something that people can manage and deal with easier because it is such a big event. Now, the problem also is if you're unable to process what's happening, depending on what age this is hit, this becomes a little bit more difficult. Then we have the small T traumas, which is everything that is what I call death of 1,000 paper cuts. So everybody's like, oh, I don't have any small trauma, I don't have any traumas, but you've got things that have happened in your past that you're still rooted in. And I'm going to talk about what the emotional looks like, which the physical, how it shows up emotionally and physically in your body. So you have an understanding that if you're rooted in something from like, say, 3 to 5, 7 to 9, 11 to 13, or early 20s, those are usually traumas that have been rooted, which are creating the habits that you've got going on right now. So when Coach Lisa and I do our coaching, and everything that we've done in our membership is to help you clear those emotional blocks and get you unstuck from where you're at. So if you're unclear about what exactly, we do, this is what we do. We help you, in my side of it, is help you identify what emotional blocks and traumas that you have that are holding you back. And Coach Lisa looks at the nutrition and the training and the movement and all of that. So when we look at how is your nutrition affecting your thyroid? How is it affecting your liver? Like, why do you need to stack your habits? So you guys have heard us say this 100 times if we've said it once, is that our programs are all about habit stacking, because it takes 66 days to build a new habit, and it takes 100 days to really cement it, like really get it going, and it actually takes 1 whole year. So that's why our membership for this limited time is, excuse me, we're offering an extra 6 months free on top of the 6-month membership. So you actually have 1 whole year in order to go through the program and develop all the proper steps, strategies, and techniques in order to get you through where you're going. So when we're looking at what are the top 3 things that you think are normal but are actually a trauma response, what I actually want to do is share with you all 10 of them, and then I'm going to talk about the top 3 that we see that come up majority of the time. So 10 trauma responses that you thought were normal, and we've got right off the list, shutting down. If you ever find that, like you're having an argument, discussion, or you're in a place where you're uncomfortable, so you just start to shut down emotionally and physically. That can look like I'm going to cocoon on a Sunday in front of the TV with my blanket and my hot chocolate. I'm not going to answer my phone or talk to anybody. Shutting down completely because you're just overwhelmed. So we see this all the time. And women come to us all the time. It's like, I'm really overwhelmed. That's shutting down. It's the same thing, right? So when that's happening, It is, in fact, a trauma response. Next one, a lot of people know this one. I don't think you'll be surprised by it. So we're not going to actually go too deep into it today, but people pleasing. So if you're always putting yourself or other people first before yourself, that's just people pleasing. If you're worried about what people think of you or how they respond to you or how you show up, and you spend more time worrying about how do you look and are people going to judge you, that also comes into people pleasing. So the judgment that people misunderstand, they're like, it's like, oh, I don't want someone to judge me, because you're trying to please the other people around you. Okay, so judgment is a huge thing, that when it sits, the trauma that sits in the body, judgment comes up, and it's usually towards yourself first and foremost before you start judging other people. And if everybody was honest, there's everybody in the world is walking around judging something, if you're honest. Okay, another one is like walking away. So if you're in a conversation with your spouse, your friends, family, best friend, and you don't like how it's feeling because you're feeling attacked and you walk away, that's an actual trauma response. So that comes along with getting defensive. So this is where we talk about owning up and taking responsibility for your actions. And I've actually had this, and it comes into next is like playing the victim. And there was a person that I was following on Facebook, and was constantly posting stuff, playing the victim. And I very gently pointed out that it was the way she was perceiving the information. And that she was like, and it's attention-seeking behavior. I didn't say that in the post. Anyway, she was very offended and she didn't like it. But the fact is, if you're walking away and you're being defensive and you're like, because you're playing the victim, and what somebody says something to you and you get offended very quickly, that is the mirror for you to sit there and go, what is this teaching me? Why am I offended over what this person said? So if you're looking for your first tip, here it is if when that happens, this is a learning tool. This is where you sit there and go, okay, well, why am I feeling this way? What's going on? What's coming up for me? Right? Every time you're offended, angry, get defensive, or play the victim, and I'll explain this in a minute, there's a vast difference of being a victim in the moment and living in victimhood. I've talked about this in past lives. So, and I'll explain that difference. But if you're getting defensive or somebody's like triggering you, it's not their responsibility to change who they are. It's you need to look at the truth of why. And this can be very empowering for a lot of people. And majority of the time, people don't know how to do it properly. They don't understand how to like break it down. They don't understand how to like dig deeper through what that defensive is. So this is where our coaching comes into play, where we help you with the tips and the techniques in order to get you to be able to open that door and see what's behind it. And we want to be able to do. So I did talk about playing the victim. This is more in the realm of victimhood. So I will use myself as an example. When my son passed, it was a very bad state. Obviously, it was a catastrophic event in my life. It sent me to therapy. I was diagnosed with like multiple different diagnoses, and I worked very, very hard to move through my complex PTSD, anxiety, depression, traumatic grief, and suicidal thoughts. Okay, so there's a choice. I could either live in that and like let that continually grow and then garner sympathy from people and attention and everything else. Listen, I still miss my son with every breath I take. Because he was my son. That pain's never changed. Like, it doesn't go away. It changes over time. But what you need to look at is you can't live in that moment to like move through it. And it's a lot of work, right? So it happens with every person has their own story. Every person has a story. Okay, so it's not just, I'm not like special in like this was mine. This just happens to be mine. Okay, so when we look at this next side of that, playing the victim, is also emotional numbness. And a lot of people are here. So we're going to also talk a little bit more as we go forward about how that shows up physically for people and how this actually shows up on an emotional level. Like if you're emotionally numb because you're playing internally playing the victim and you're emotionally numb, that's usually associated with that whole coming home on a Friday night and like work was stressful. I'm telling you, it's stressful for everybody. It's not a badge. It's just life. It is. So it's how you learn to handle it. So if you're coming home going, I need the glass of wine. Oh, I need this chocolate. Oh, I need some sugar. Cravings, binge eating, that's how that shows up because we're not connecting. So when we look at also the other side of that is also keeping super busy. I will tell you after my son passed that I took a year-long photography course. I joined a photography club. I went to circus school. I redid my backyard. That was a lot of work. Anything I could do to stay busy and not slow down enough to like actually do the work that I eventually had to do. I was traveling the world with my ex. Like I was just non-stop. Worked as much as I could. I literally worked so much that I ended up getting nosebleeds and they had to cauterize my nose. I know. Stress is a super crazy thing. So if you're thinking that keeping busy is normal, it's actually a trauma response because there's a balance that we always have to look at. And there's a balance that we need to achieve in order to be quiet with our thoughts. Now, people will argue, I'm like, oh no, I was busy growing my business. I was busy doing this. I was busy with my family. No. Those are excuses. And those don't fly, right? So if you're really honest with yourself, getting rid of the busy badge is where you want to start, okay? Because everybody does. So this also leads into dissociation. And for this is a lot of women. Men do it too, but a lot of women are like, they just disassociate from what their needs are. How many times have you like, oh, I don't have time to work out. I don't have time to track my food. I don't have time to eat well. I'm just going to order in. Oh, I don't have time to rest. Oh, I did my self-care because I had a bath and I did my nails. That's not self-care, guys. That's just looking pretty. It's surface, very surface. Self-care is taking care of what your needs are. Being vocal, standing up for yourself, journaling out the hurt, forgiving people in your past, whatever all of those little tips are, all of those things, you have to put those together. Okay, so playing the prosecutor. Okay, like, oh, I'm in charge. I did everything, right? Like, think of it like a prosecuting lawyer. And every time you're like, I'm right. Oh, but. And you have an argument for everything. That's a trauma response because it taking you away from owning up and being responsible for your actions because the only person that can change is you. Hold on, I gotta make sure I've got all of my notes. Yep, missed a page. Okay, so when we are in, so the last one, number 10, is the hyper independence. I know, ladies, I get it. We ask our guys to do something for us, and they're like, I'm getting on it. And it's like 3 days later, and you're like, fuck this. I'm just going to do it my damn self. Okay, but this comes into being defensive, walking away, and then shutting down, opposed to saying, hey, honey, I need your help in this moment, right now. I need you to take out the garbage now. Are you free to do that? Yes or no? That's communication. It's also one of the other things that we teach in our membership, how to have an open, proper, inclusive conversation with your partner or your siblings or your children or whoever. Okay? So when we are looking at, so we've got those actual 10 responses. What we're going to talk about is the top 3. People pleasing, shutting down, and being constantly busy. It's a lot of words. Because these are the ones that most people do. Okay, so I'm taking common top three things that people think are normal but are actually signs of trauma. So again, people pleasing, shutting down, and being constantly busy. So first, I want you guys to understand there's two states of mind. There's the trauma brain and there's the executive functioning brain. Okay, so when we're in a trauma state, we can't access the executive functioning skills. Okay, meaning we fail to think about like the future, we struggle to plan or organize, and we have lack of reasoning. Okay, so in a trauma state, we're more likely to experience emotional reasoning or black and white thinking. So this is one of the reasons why you want to take a look at why you're doing what you're doing. Okay, so when we are looking at people pleasing, okay, we understand it's a classic trauma response, and you probably mostly know it as fight or flight. But there's also two other common ones, and I've talked about this in the past, is there's freeze and fawn. Okay, so that's usually if you're in like a functioning freeze state. This is like where we talk about dissociation, getting defensive, emotional numbness, shutting down, all of those things. If you're in a functional freeze, as you're going to work, you're making lunch for the kids, you put gas in the car, you've stopped at Shoppers to pick up whatever. You're doing all the things, but what you're actually not doing is really truly taking care of yourself. This stems in one of the things that people will always talk about, and this is where it really becomes, it's like women will do this all the time when they're in the functioning freeze. Is like, oh, I'm going to take care of myself. Oh, I know I need help. Oh, I need to get in shape. I need to lose weight. Oh, but what's happening is you're saying all these words, but the actions you're doing don't mean anything. So like if you're watching, it's like you're telling yourself like this, how many times over and over, it's like, how many Mondays have you thought you're going to start over? How many years has it been like, oh, I'm going to start a program. Oh, I'm going to get the help. Like you get into this state where you're in a frozen state where you're just sitting there going, you can't even see the door. So what happens is you keep going around and around doing everything for everybody else opposed to doing for yourself. So how is this showing up for you? This is showing up on a physical level of like brain fog, gut issues, insomnia, autoimmune diseases, high blood pressure. It's showing up emotionally, like you're more anxious, feeling angry, feeling alone, feeling distrustful. Yeah, there we go. Full word. Right? So that's how that looks when it's showing up for people. Okay, so the other one I wanted to talk about was the shutting down. And again, this is somebody who freezes as a trauma response, right? So we've gone from fight or flight, which spikes the adrenaline, spikes your cortisol levels, it spikes like your hormones are out of balance, because what happens is deep in our DNA, our body shuts down. And it secretes all those emotions. I'm sure Coach Lisa's talked about it ad nauseum. You guys have heard it 100 times. But what you're not associating with is that when it's happening to you, the problem is it's so common that you think it's normal. So if you're overstressed and you're overwhelmed and you're in this shut down mode, the problem is your stress level is now chronic. You don't ever feel that come back down. Those emotions, the adrenaline, the hormones are just constantly beating out. So how is this showing up for you? Extra belly fat, extra fat on your back. Everybody's talking about back fat. How do you hide it? Well, don't hide it. Make it go away. Right? So, listen, as women, we're all very good at let me just wear something looser. Or how about we kind of look at what the problem is, identify that, move through it, so that you're not feeling like you have to do everything. Okay, so when we have this shutting down, it's like you feel that you have no support. I have to do everything. You have a lack of patience. You're angry about everything. Like this sits in the body. So this is where this is showing up. This is going to show up again with your gut issues. trouble sleeping, binge eating, cravings, dry hair. What do your nails look like? Are they chipped? How are the ends of your hair? I mean, I live in Costa Rica. It's been like dry season, so I haven't had a haircut in like a year and a half. So I have some split ends, but I have otherwise very healthy hair. So when we're looking at your body is telling you if you have a skin rash, if you have dry elbows, like these are things that show up and people are like, oh, it's just so normal. It's not. It's common, not normal. Okay? So the last one I want to talk about is the constantly being busy, the busy badge. I've done it. It's horrific and it's a lot of work to slow down. Because there is a balance. Like if you're looking at life-work balance, and if you think slowing down is curling up and shutting the world out, sitting on your bed, watching TV, curled up in a blanket, no. If you feel that like shutting down and like, I'm taking a break and you're doom scrolling on your phone, no. That's not how that looks, right? So when we're trying to go from being busy, hold on, lost my notes. Da, 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 da. Okay. I'm getting there. I have a lot of notes. Dun, dun. This is where if you guys have questions, you guys can like... Oh, here we go. Got it. Okay. So when we have that busy badge, usually you're running away from something. It's true. I did it myself. I mean, I know this perfectly because I've lived all of these things. And I've also come through it naturally without drugs, right? Like it's like your weight tends to, when you're busy, you're overeating, you're binge eating, you're smoking, shopping, all the things. All the addictive things are happening because you're trying to fill in time, opposed to, I know I say it all the time. I know you guys love it when I say this. Journaling. You got to get that shit out. And I don't mean like on your phone taking notes. I mean pen, paper, and actually write it down. Now here's the hard part. When you start journaling, you're going to sit there and you're going to be like, Penny, I don't know what to write. Okay, great. Draw something. Doodle. Paint. Get it out. Whatever you're feeling. Maybe you want to make jewelry. I don't know. It doesn't have to be traditional. Think outside of the box, right? Like there's other ways to do this. It's like same with meditation. You don't have to sit there all quiet in your yoga gear with okay, that can work. But not for everybody, especially not if you're starting and your brain is one of these brains where like I don't want to slow down and look at my life. So walking meditation, do it when you run, do it while you swim, do it while you garden. I tend to get a lot of thoughts out while I'm doing the dishes. I also get a lot of most of my creative thoughts there too. So when you're looking at trying to do something, you have to make it fit in for where you're currently at in this journey that you've got going on. But the other thing too, ladies, you have to also look at all of this stuff shows up. And I'm going to recap, like it shows up physically, like, like everybody's like, when it comes to menopause, they're like, oh, it's just menopause, it's my age. That's BS. I've had menopause, been through it, done it. Like my son died, my body pushed me into menopause within a year. Was through it in like, I don't know, 18 months or something. Menopause doesn't last forever. It's a short time. What your body's telling you is you've got stress. You've got emotional trauma. You've got things you're holding on to that you haven't let go of. So if you're looking at your body and you're like sitting there going, oh, it's just old age. That's the biggest load of crap that ever was. That is the most disassociated bullshit comment you can ever say to yourself, right? So this is where this is going to look like. You walk into a room and you're like, oh, what did I walk in here for? How many times you guys have done that? That's brain fog. Okay, that's a full disassociation. That's part of your trauma response, not in old age. Guys, I'm 56 years old. I have not forgotten where any of my stuff is. Okay, insomnia. If you're having a problem falling asleep or fall asleep because you're really super exhausted, but then you wake up and it takes you like, 1 o'clock to pee. Again, this is your body telling you there's a problem. Okay, getting up to pee in the middle of the night, not normal. Common, not normal. Okay, gut issues. If you're bloated, you can't eat dairy, can't eat this, can't eat that, and your stomach's bloated because you have all these things, or you have diarrhea or constipation, that's your body telling you. You're avoiding something that's emotional and it's connected. Because last time I checked, my head attached to my body. It all goes together. There's no separation here. The nerves and everything flows, right? If we're looking at autoimmune diseases, diabetes, type 2, fibromyalgia, all the other autoimmunes that come with, they are stacked from held on trauma, things that you're avoiding to pay attention to, and that which is caused over time. So it's a compound effect. You've had the trauma, you looked for a way to support yourself because you felt unsecure, unsupported, and unheard. So then what happens is like you start eating bad, you do this, whatever your habits are, you've built them up over time that has now created the problem we're at, right? So when we look at things like your diabetes that you got in like your 50s, type 2, not 1, that started in your 30s. Alzheimer's, dementia, all of those things at 80, that started when you're 45 and 50. These things take time. So you have to address them. The extra weight that you put on, that's a lifetime of events that have got you here. The quick fixes, the miracle pill, I'm not even going to talk about Ozempic or whatever the hell that thing is called, because that's not real, because as soon as you stop taking it, all the weight comes back on, and you have kidney damage. So the weight you're looking to lose in like the next 6 weeks, that didn't take you 6 weeks to put it on. And until you manage what all the emotional trauma is, that's not budging. Not budging. You're going to keep trying to do different things, and you're like, I'm going to jump. But the finish line's right in front of you. You got to go in a straight line. Okay? So this is showing up in the high blood pressure, high heart rate, all of these things. Not normal. Very common. The other thing is like your anxiety, getting angry, feeling alone, feeling distrustful, not having any self-confidence, low self-esteem, all of these things, lack of patience. Or here's the other one that most people will miss is like when something happens and you just fly off the handle and you get angry or overwhelmed because you're just so tapped out that one little thing sets your spark, and then all of a sudden you're like, can't handle anything in life, and you're just spiraling out of control. So, if you feel that, here's where, if you guys saw my post, Lisa and I made our post today, I think I posted in the group. Let's start with 3 things that you guys can do to get you started, and that is, if you are not already working out, you need to start somewhere. Even if it's 10 or 15 minutes, go outside and walk. It doesn't have to be brutal. It doesn't have to be a lot, and just have to move your body. Okay? If you're already working out, give a little tweak to your program. Add some weight to the weights you're lifting, or add some time to the cardio that you're doing. 10%. That's it. The other thing is track your food for 7 days. That's all. 7 days, see where you're at. Because most people either are overeating, undereating, or not eating enough protein. Because they're guessing. Okay? The last one is go to bed 15 minutes early. That's it. Nothing spectacular. 15 minutes every night for the 1 week. And then you can come back and post in the comments and let me know how that works. Guys, I feel that was a lot. If you have any questions or comments, please, you guys know what to do. Hit the love button, hit the like button. Post your comments or questions below for either Coach Lisa or I, because sometimes in my live, she has an answer for something if you guys are asking nutritional stuff. That's her department. And, wait, how we going? Stop that. Whoops. So, yeah. And I hope you got a lot of understanding about how this shows up in your life and what the actual trauma responses are. Because everybody who says I have no trauma, they're actually not looking in the mirror. Okay, guys, that's me for this week for Coach's Corner, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.